What's up, y'all? Welcome to another channel of MHRP, Machine Head Repair Project. Today, we're going to be discussing on 10 basic things every car owner should know. So, if you own a vehicle, these are the 10 things that you need to know about your vehicle. So, number one, your engine. So your engine oil is number one. Number two, windshield wipers and fluid. Number three, coolant. You need antifreeze in your vehicle to cool down your engine and warm it up. 4, your brakes and your brake fluid. 5, your tires. You need to check the pressure and the treads of your tires. They can't be bald. You can't pass inspection with a bald tire, or you won't have good grips on the road and you'll slip and slide. Number 6, your headlights and your taillights. The bulbs, you need to check on them. A lot of people forget about them, and when they burn out, you don't know, and you're driving on the road, and then you need your headlights one day and one night, and you have no light, and then you get pulled over, and you get a ticket for no headlights. And then again, your tail lights, it's behind your vehicle, so there's a lot of times you neglect that because you don't think about going back there to check if the lights are still working or not. And then on top of that, number 7, your air filter, and then your cabin filter. Your air filter and your cabin filter is important because it filters out the air going into the engine and inside your vehicle. Number 8, your battery. It's important that you need to check your battery frequently because battery don't last forever. They have probably about a 4 to 6 years, maybe less, depending what type of battery you get, of a life. Number 9, transmission fluid. It's important to check your transmission depending on if you buy a used vehicle, or depending on how many miles you put on the vehicle. You need to check the fluid constantly because there's a recommended for each make of how many miles you're supposed to change your transmission fluid. But on top of that, you want to check your fluid to see if if it's getting dark or if it's still pink, because transmission fluid is a pink color. And then number 10, gasoline. What type of gasoline are you using in your vehicle? Some vehicle recommend premium, some recommend regular unleaded. So depending on what your car is required, and you need to know what kind you're going to put in there. And then there's a lot when it comes to what gas station or what brand you want to use. That's really depending on you. Gasoline is gasoline. So let's go over those 10 things, and that way you can know more about your car. So number 1 on our list is engine oil. So it's very important to know about your engine oil because engine oil is there to run your motor and lubricate it. So a lot of the times people forget and neglect the engine oil and don't change it. Recommendedly, you should change your oil every 3,000 miles unless you use full synthetic, and then people will say full synthetic will be about 5,000 miles, and that also based on how many miles is on your vehicle. The more miles is on your engine, that makes your engine more worn and may need more maintenance to it frequently. So engine oil. To check the engine oil, there will always be, it's going to be in the engine area under the hood, and it's going to have a dipstick just like this, and it's going to be yellow, and it's going to have a sign or a saying on there, engine oil. So you want to pull the dipstick out and then have a rag or a paper towel handy, and then you're going to wipe the dipstick. Once you wipe the dipstick dry, you're going to want to stick, before you stick it back in, let me show you. On the dipstick there will always be a high, a low, hot or cold, or a just dots, and that will indicate if the oil is low or high, cold or hot. When the vehicle is cold, the oil will be at the low level. When the vehicle is hot, it will be at the high level. So on top of that, you also want to see if the oil is a light color or a dark color. Engine oil should be like a light brown color, tan, or if it's all worn and it's been in there for quite a while, it will be a darker color. So we're going to go ahead and stick this dipstick inside the motor, and then you're going to pull the dipstick right back out, and you're going to check the level. And as you can see the oil on the dipstick. It's a light brown, it's not dark, and it's at the top of the dot right here. That indicates, the color indicates it's a that the oil's been changed, and that it's good, and that it's at its good level, and it's at the second dot, so we have a good amount of oil in the engine. And if you want to check it a few more times, it's a good idea. Put it back in, pull out, and check again, and there you have it. And that's how you check the oil through the dipstick. On top of that, it's also a good idea on the oil cap to turn the cap and remove it and check the cap if it's milky, or if it's dark, or if it's light, or if it's dry like this one. If it's milky, a lot of the indication that means it's showing that there's water in your engine, and that means you need a new head gasket. If it's dry, that's a good sign. If it's light brown, like the oil on the dipstick, then that's a good sign as well, because oil splashes in the engine, so it'll splash on the oil cap. But this is a good sign here. That means it's clean, it's not milky, so the engine is good. On top of that, on your oil cap, it will also, a lot of times, most make will show or print what type of oil is needed for this car. Like this one is SAE 5W30. And then you just want to replace it back, put the cap right back on. And that's how you check your oil. On our list, number 2, windshield wipers and windshield fluid. It's always important to check your windshield wipers because over time they will crack and they will get loose, or the rubber will start getting dry. And on a rainy day, if the windshield wiper is not proper, it'll start skipping a beat, or it won't wipe off the fluid off your windshield, and then you won't be able to see where you're going. So it's important that you check your windshield wiper and make sure it's not dry, hard, and if it's cracking or just falling apart. On the passenger side, it's always a lot shorter than the driver's side. The driver's side is longer. And then with the windshield wipers, you also want to check the windshield wiper fluid, and that will also be near a lot of time will be near the passenger side, and there will be a reservoir that looks like this with a gooseneck that travels into the fender of the vehicle or behind the headlights. And on top of it, it'll say windshield wiper fluid only, and it'll have a little image of a windshield and fluid shooting out of it. With the windshield wiper fluid, you can add just water, but it's best to use windshield wiper fluid that you purchased from an auto parts store or Walmart or where you want to get it. There will be different kinds, but either one that you use would be good for the windshield wiper, because they have some chemical in there that will actually lubricate and help the fluid to not freeze into winter time, and it will lubricate the windshield and lubricate the windshield wiper to keep it to last a lot longer. So if you want to go the cheap side, just add water, but the best way of doing it is getting windshield wiper fluid. Number 3 on our list. Number 3 on our list is coolant. So the coolant is where the radiator is, and the radiator is in front of your engine, next to the motor. So the best way to check your coolant, and you got to make sure your vehicle is not running, or if it's, make sure it's not hot, because if you open this cap, the pressure and the temperature will blow out, and then it will be much painful. So you want to make sure that the vehicle is cooled down at a cool temperature before you remove this cap. So we got the radiator cap here, and we have the reservoir for black backflow of the coolant. So right in front of the radiator will be a cooling fan. It will either have one fan or two fan. One fan for the AC, one fan for the engine. Or it'll just have one fan to run both for the AC and the engine. But that fan is important to cool down the coolant and the engine, because you don't want the vehicle to overheat. So with the coolant, depending on your vehicle of make, it's going to be a green color or a orange or pink color. Now the question is, can you mix these colors coolant? Negative. If you mix these coolant, they will turn into jello inside your radiator, and then you may have to replace the radiator, and you have to flush out the whole engine, because the coolant, what the coolant is for, is it's a chemical mixture that will flow through your engine to cool your engine down at certain temperature. And how it does that is what you call a thermostat that needs to be changed here and there, depending. It's like every 30,000 miles, or you just do it when it's needed. But the thermostat opens and closes when the engine gets to a certain temperature, and then when it gets to a different certain temperature, it'll open, and then it'll close. Anyway, so to check your coolant, you want to open the cap. And inside your cap, you will see the coolant. And so for this coolant is an orange color. And you want to make sure there's no goo or debris. And then you want to check on the cap. You see the rubber O-ring, it's not cracked or anything, because if it is, then you're going to have a pressure leak. And this cap holds a certain pressure, but that's going to a different education there. And that's how you check the coolant level. And then on top of that, you have the reservoir, the backflow reservoir, and when it gets hot, coolant will flow into there, and then when the engine cools back down, the coolant will go back into the radiator. And with this reservoir, there's a certain level that this reservoir needs to keep coolant in, and you can see it on the side of the reservoir. It'll be low, it'll say low, or it'll say high, and that you need to put a certain amount of coolant inside there, and that's what you want to check. And inside your vehicle, for the coolant, you will see right here C and H for cold and hot, and that's for the temperature. That's a temperature that reads how hot and cold the engine will be. When the car is at coolant temperature or heating temperature, it should be halfway from H and C, and that's a normal temperature range. Now if it stays cold, that means the thermostat is stuck closed, it's not opening up, or it's stuck open and it's not closing. Now if it goes to H, that's an issue. That means the motor is getting hot and you need to take it to the nearest mechanic and get that checked on. Number 4 on our list is the brakes. So it's always important, if you go under the hood, you always want to check on your brake fluid. So on your brake fluid, it always is going to be near the air filter. So right here on the driver's side of the engine area, there's going to be what you call a master cylinder, and the master cylinder is where that's where all the brake fluid are carried into. So the best way to check on the brake fluid, on the side of the canister, there will be a maximum and a minimum marking on the side, and you can see the liquid or the fluid through the canister to see where it's at that level. The level should be at a maximum. If it's below the maximum, that means there's 2 reasons for that. 1, you're leaking brake fluid, or 2, your brake pads are low. Your brake pads on your brakes should be a certain thickness, and when the brake pads wear out, they start to get thinner, and when the brake pads get thinner, the fluid will go low, and if the brake pads are thicker, your canister master cylinder brake fluid will be at max. But if there's an indicator light in your dash and it shows that your brake lights come on your dash, that is showing that your brake fluid is low, and those are the 2 indications that you will need to check what may be the cause of it. Because on the side of the master cylinder right here, that is called a level sensor, and that checks the level of the fluid for the brake fluid, and if it goes low, the indicator light will come on. Now for you to turn off that light, you have to either replace the brake pads, or you just fill the canister up back to max, and then the light will go. So while you're driving and you feel like your brakes are squeaking or there's a vibration, that's an indication that your brake pads are going low. So a good way to check your brake pads, if you can see it through the rims, then you can check the thickness of your brake pads. If you cannot, you can take the wheel off and you can see the thickness of your brake pads. And right here is your brake pads. This is the brake caliper and this is the rotor. So this is the brake pads, and when they go thin, then the level of that fluid will go down. So this, sometimes you can see the thickness of your brake pads through the rim, just like so. Number 5, tires. It's important to check your tires because the tires are what is making your car travel from one point A to point B. So a few things to do to check on your tires is you want to check the pressure of the tire, and you want to check the condition of the tire. So a few ways you want to check how much does the tire hold when it comes to PSI or pressure. So there's one way is to check on the driver's side door. The driver's side door will show you how much capacity the tire is supposed to hold with a load of a certain amount, less or the max. So to look up the information for your tire, you want to go to the driver's side, and you will see a little sticker that looks similar to this. And this right here will show tire and loading information. It will show the tire, the front, rear, and the spare. If you have the original tire that's on the vehicle, then this is what you need to go by. If you have aftermarket, then you can't go by this listing. And then it will show you how much pressure the tire should hold, and then what size tire should be on the vehicle. Also, if you don't have that on your door, you can also look on the tire around the wheel area, and then around the wheel area you will see right here, it will tell you the max load of how many kilograms or how many pounds, and then how much PSI of max should be pressured in this tire. It will also show you what size the tire are: 225, 65, R17. And then also each brand has a certain max amount and how much pressure. Checking the pressure on your tire, you want to use an accurate measurement. So it's always good to use a digital pressure. So what you need to do is look for the cap on the wheel. You want to take the cap off the wheel and get your little scanner here and check the pressure. And you want to make sure that you have this on PSI, and right now this wheel is showing at 34 PSI, and it should be at around that area. So we need to add a little bit more, and to add the air you just put it right here until you're at the pressure that you need to be. Once you're done, just put the cap right back on. Next, what else is important is you want to check the tread of your tire, and the tread is right here, and that's where it grips the wheel, the road. And the best tool to use is this little gauge here, tire gauge. And in the green you will be good, the yellow you will be in between, and red you're in a little issue where you need to get the tire changed. So we're gonna go ahead and get this and check it, and then this tire is in the green. It's also a good idea to check the tire pressure on your spare tire in the trunk or wherever it may lie, and also check the tread to the tire, because you never know, one day you might have a flat and you're going to need that tire to be aired up and ready to go. Also, let's not forget, nowadays most modern cars now have tire pressure sensors, and that tire pressure sensor will end up on your dash. And so with that indicator, if you see that sign, that symbol, most cars will show you each tire pressure, front, back, left, right, And some will just have the indicator light just to tell you there's one of the tire pressure is low or flat. So when you see that, you have to go and check each one of the tires on their pressure, or make sure that you're not driving on a flat tire. Number 6, you want to always check your headlights and make sure that the bulbs are not burnt out on driver and passenger, signal left and right, dim, and also on your tail light. Have somebody sitting in the car check, and you stand in the back of the vehicle and check for the brake lights, the regular lights, and then the reverse lights. And on top of that, go ahead and check the lights for the license plates, because you can get pulled over for the license plate light not being on. So on most vehicles, the light controls are right here on the left steering wheel nozzle, and you can put it on and signal left and right. And then sometimes it has an auto where you can put it on auto and it'll automatically turn on. Then sometimes you have these other vehicles that have the controls on the panel, and then your signal are still on the steering wheel, left and right. And also, what's also good to do when you're doing a test on signals is you always also want to go ahead and press the emergency light and check that as well. Number 7 on our list is the air filter. So it's very important to check your air filter, because the air flows into the engine and it needs a certain reading of how much airflow is going through your engine. If it's blocked off, it's kind of like when you're trying to breathe and then something blocks up into your throat and you can't breathe properly, you start to choke. Well, the same thing with the vehicle. If it's blocked up, the engine will choke and the car will hesitate. So the best way of checking the air filter, and a lot of the vehicle will have either it's bolted in or it has a clip like so, and then you'll just move up and remove the air filter just like so. So as you can see, this is a new air filter and it's very clean, and this is how it's supposed to be. The best way to check air filter is if you can put it up to a light and you can see through it, that's a good air filter. If you put it up to the light and you can't see through it, that's a pretty bad air filter. So we'll just go ahead and put that back in and snap it back in. So here's a demonstration of a dirty air filter. If you crack these open, you can see how much dust and how much darker it looks on either side. And then if you put it through a light, it's going to be hard to see. That is a bad air filter. Next, you want to look into the cabin filter. Majority of the time, the cabin filter will lie where the behind the glove compartment. So what you want to do is open the glove compartment and pull the glove compartment out. Once you remove the glove compartment, the cabin filter will lie right behind and it'll be just clipped on. Remove it, and as you can see, this cabin filter is really dirty, and you're breathing this. So what you want to do is take that cabin filter out, dust it out, get a new one and replace it. Once you get a new one and replace it, you're going to want to stick it back in. And you want to make sure your cabin filter says up or whatever direction it may be. And then you want to clip the clip back on, like so, and put the glove compartment back in. Simple as that. Number 8 on our list. So with number 8 is the battery. You want to check the date on the battery. You want to check if there's any corrosion or anything on the terminals. Make sure the connections are clean and dry and whatnot. You can lubricate it for better connection, and then make sure the battery is mounted on so it doesn't move around, and make sure it's not wet around, that way the acid is not spread out. And if you want to check the voltage on the battery, please look down below on my other channels, on my videos, and I'll show how to check it with a multimeter. But after checking all that and everything looks good, that means your battery would be in good shape. Batteries usually last about 4 to 6 years. You can always go by the nearest auto parts store and they can check your battery, and they can print you a little form showing if it's a good battery or a bad battery, and they'll show how much voltage is in it. Best way of checking the battery also is turn on your vehicle and turn on your radio, AC and everything, and see how much load is put onto that battery. And if the car is running fine and there's no shake or rattling or whatever, then your battery's good. If you feel vibration like the car is about to die, pretty much the battery is in bad shape. Number 9 on our list is the transmission fluid. It's always good to check the transmission fluid if you drive a lot. On newer vehicles, you know, you have warranty, so they'll check the fluid and everything for you. But while you're driving, and if you feel a jerk or whatever while shifting reverse or drive 1 to 2, 2 to 3, or to D for drive, or to R to reverse, it's always good to check the fluid. And there's 2 dipsticks in your engine area. One's going to be yellow and it'll say motor oil, and the other one will be a different color, like this one will be orange, and that will indicate that that's the transmission fluid, and that lies in the transmission area. As you can see here, this is a 4-cylinder engine, so it's front wheel drive, so the transmission will be on the side. But if it's a rear wheel drive, the transmission will be in the back of the engine area, and the engine will face forward. So to check the fluid on the transmission is basically the same way of checking the fluid on the motor. So what you're going to do is pull the dipstick out and check the color on it and the level. So as you can see here, you got these little cutouts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that will show you how much level or how much fluid is in the vehicle. So what we're going to do is we're going to wipe this down. And then we're going to dip it in real quick and pull out. And we're going to see how much fluid is in there. And it looks full because it's all the way to this notch here. If it was low, it would be down here, but it's full, so it's up here. Now looking at the color of the fluid, as you can see, if you wipe it, you can see there's a pink color to it, a light pink color to it, and it's also a smell, a sweet smell to transmission fluid. So it's darker from engine oil, because engine oil is more of a brownish, while the transmission fluid is more of a pinkish look. So those are the things you need to look into: the smell, the color, and the thickness. Now if you pull this out and you see that it's dark like an engine oil, or darker like it's black, that means your transmission is burning the fluid, and that's a bad indication of a bad transmission. So we're going to go ahead and put this dipstick back in because everything looks good on here. Number 10, gasoline. So for the vehicle to run, you need fuel, gasoline. So it doesn't use just any type of gasoline, because there's all types of gasoline out there. But to figure out what type of gasoline that you need to use in your vehicle, the best way to look it up is, of course, through your manual that's located in the glove compartment, or if you open the fuel tank cap or the fuel tank door, a lot of time it will show on the door what type of fuel is needed. So for this vehicle, it will say premium unleaded fuel only, see owner's manual. And other vehicles like this Corvette will have it right here. This says unleaded fuel only, premium recommended, super recommended. And like this Camaro, on the door it will also say premium unleaded fuel recommended, see owner's manual. So those are the 10 basic car owners things you should know about your vehicle. If this has been helpful, please click the like button below. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below as well. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do, because I'll be making more videos for you that will be helpful. And then if you have any suggestions about what type of video I should make, or if you have any ideas, or you want to know how to repair something, let me know, and then I'll make that video for you. Till next time, Machine Head Repair Project is out.
Perfect.